Hello everybody, this is DuncantheDM, and today we're doing our third and final Kids on Bike video. This one's going to be called Running the Game. This one is here to help give some suggestions on how to become the lead narrator for your group. Running the game. Getting ready to run the game can be very challenging. I was a player for almost 20 years before I really started to run games of my own. I'll go over some items that really helped me be able to become the lead narrator for my group of friends, as well as now strangers. I hope these topics will help you take the trip behind the screen and become the lead narrator for your friends. Mental blocks. The hardest part of moving into the role of a lead narrator were mental blocks. Will I do a good job at it? Will my players enjoy the game? What if I make a fool of myself? I can't do the voices for my NPCs. These are all things that I thought of before I started and found ways to overcome. Will I do a good job? You may not do a good job the first time, and that's perfectly fine. Just as with all things in life, you need to practice to become good at something. It takes some people a lot of practice to become good at it. It takes others very little practice to become good at something. But practice is how you get there. Things you can do to speed up the process is to ask your players for feedback. Let them know you're new and ask if they have constructive feedback on how you can get better or how you could have done better. If they can be honest with you, this will greatly help give you great info on how to improve. Will my friends enjoy the game? If you're worried that your friends may not like the game, try talking to your friends before you start the game. Ask them what type of stories they're interested in or what sounds interesting to them. Remember, Kids on Bikes may not be for everyone. Some players will only want to play D&D because they know the name. Also, if they're unfamiliar with the type of story that you want to tell, you can ask them to watch a movie that has that topic or watch a TV show that has that topic, and it'll help get them more comfortable with the idea. You'll be able to give them a better visual idea of what you're meaning in your game. Not ready to run a game with friends? If you're at the point you're still worried about your friends will not like the game, then play with strangers. These days, it's easier to find a group of strangers to play with, and playing with strangers may help get the practice of running the game that you need to make you more confident of playing with your friends. I'm on one of the Kids on Bikes Facebook groups, and in there's plenty of people who are looking for a game to play. I'll put the link down below and post your game. There'll be plenty of people who'd be willing to join. In this group, they have experienced players and new players, so you should be able to get some experienced people who can help you with the rules. Playing games online is easier these days. You can set up Discord for free and play with video or just audio on Discord. Now, I choose to use Zoom, and the reason is twofold. I want to be able to record my shows first to share on YouTube so others can see real play podcasts. I'm not a professional. I don't get paid for it, but I enjoy it, and I want others to see what it really looks like. The second is I can watch my games and see where I can improve. By watching my games, I can identify things that I need to work on. Filler words is one of them, saying but, yeah. I do that a lot. And when you start watching yourself on the video, it's a little challenging to see all the things that you can improve, but it gets easier as you identify what they are and start to work on them. What if I make a fool of myself? Well, this is fine. It's helpful. Players will remember the game for what's going on in the game. Good players will not make fun of the GM for messing up. They know it's difficult and there's a lot going on that you need to keep track of. If you feel you made a fool of yourself, your players may just enjoy it. Don't be afraid to be silly in the game. Just be careful not to take it out on your players if you feel you've embarrassed yourself. I can't do the voices for my NPCs. I rarely do voices for mine, and when I do, they sound stupid in my head. So I typically avoid doing it. My players don't mind this. They understand everybody has limits on their talent. I'm not a professional voice actor. On the big shows where they have voice actors playing like Critical Role, the Dungeon Run, and shows like that, they're voice actors. They're required to do it for their character to make it more entertaining for the audience. You don't need to do it for your gaming group. If you can, great. If not, don't worry about it. Or if you can't do it now, once you get more comfortable on running the rules and learning your players, then you can add more voices once you feel comfortable in the environment. Knowing the rules. When running a game, you're the person who is responsible for knowing the rules, and this can be overwhelming. Your players will come up with things that the book cannot possibly describe on how to handle. This is part of gaming. It will always happen, no matter what system you run. When this happens, just think of the best way to handle it and roll with that idea. If you can't think of a good way to handle it, ask your players. Your players will then feel more included in your game and feel that you value their ideas. If what they suggest is too easy or doesn't sound right to you, maybe meet in the middle. But either way, make a ruling on the spot, write it down, look it up later to see if there's a better way to handle it or an official way to handle it, And if not, keep track of it so you have the same way to handle it next time so you're consistent with your players. Running a rules-light game. While this is great and makes it quick to start, you'll run into the issue more often if things are not being described in the book. This is good and bad. Being light on the rules makes it more likely for issues to come up that you'll need to rule on the fly. In this game, it's focused on the narrative, so listen to what your players are saying, think about what stat applies to it or how to handle it, and go with that. The bad part, at least it was for me, knowing all the rules gave me more confidence, knowing that I wouldn't run into these scenarios of what I need to make up. Rules-heavy games helped give me more confidence knowing that there was the rule for it. While I enjoy the light rules of this game, some people may not. After running the game a couple times, but I'm much more confident in knowing how the system is intended to run versus worrying about how exactly the rules are phrased. As I stated before, the more practice you get running a game, the better you'll be able to handle these situations, even if it's running a different game. Start with a one-shot. While I personally don't like running one-shot adventures, they're great when you're just starting. You plan out the game, you keep the adventure short, you make it easy for the players to figure out, and this will help keep down the length of the game. Or if it is a combat-heavy game, make sure to include more action so they'll have their time to shine. Running one-shots will help keep you from having to worry as much about the impact of an action and how it will affect your story down the line, as your story will not go down the line. Also with a one-shot, if it does spin out of control, the next time you play, you can start over. When I started being a lead narrator, I used an episodic style adventure so I could still have a campaign play. The players got a mission they would head out to handle. It might take a couple weeks, but then they would head back to base and get their next mission. Now, the main reason I picked this style is so if things got out of control, I had an emergency button where command would call them back from their mission regardless of what was going on. This gave me a safety where if I messed up or the players did something that I didn't plan for, I have a way to pull them back and get them back on the story. Taking a break. When you're running a game and feel it's not heading where you thought it would, it's perfectly fine to ask your players to take a break. Step away from the table, think about what's going on, think about what you can do to get your story back in line. Before you take your break, it's perfectly fine to ask your players, what are they planning to do next? This way you limit the ideas that you have to come up with by knowing what their plan is before you take their break. If it's a campaign, don't be afraid to ask to end the session early if they've gone completely off course. It's much better to end the session early than to rush and do something that's going to mess up your story or make it very complex or confusing to get back on track. You're the one telling the story, people will understand, and players actually sometimes enjoy when you're honest with them and say, I didn't plan for you to do this, so let me figure something out. If you have any other suggestions for how to become a lead narrator, please leave them below in the comments. If I get a bunch of these, I'll do another running the game video. Also, if this encourages you to run a game of your own, please let me know how it went. I would love to hear from you. As always, thank you for listening to Duncan the DM Productions today. Remember, success will continue to drive the story, but failures will cause your player to expand the story.